Before we get into today's episode, I want to take a moment to thank everyone for the support over the last few months. We're going to be off the next 2 weeks, April 5th and April 12th, but we'll be back on the 19th with an NFL episode. After that, we'll be releasing episodes every other Sunday. Every 5 episodes, we'll take a break from trades and instead do a joint deep dive into major events in NFL and NBA history. Thank you again for the support, and we look forward to what comes next. And without further ado, I'll pass it on to myself to introduce today's episode. What looked like a gamble on the wrong player turned into a shift that changed the franchise, unlocked a new future, and sent the league in a completely different direction. It's a story about belief, timing, and choosing between what is and what could be. Welcome to the Trade Rewind. Let's get into it.
You'll see as we go along, but the trade is not so maybe remembered, but the impact is. I think you'll get what I'm talking about. All right, this guy was born in 1985 from Jackson, Mississippi. He became one of the best high school players in the country at Lanier High. His senior season stats was 38.9 points per game, 7.9 rebounds, 6.9 assists, 4.5 steals. He was named McDonald's All-American and Mr. Basketball USA.
For the whole country, not just for Mississippi.
Correct.
Wow.
Skips college, straight to the draft. He gets drafted in 2005 by the Golden State Warriors. At this point, do you have anyone in mind? I haven't given you a lot, but
He went to the Warriors in 2005. That should give me something, but I'm stumped still.
think about great guards, Warriors.
I need a little bit more to work with.
We'll keep going. Drafted 40th overall.
Oh, Monta Ellis?
Yeah, there you go. I knew it would come to you.
I was thinking of the white guy, and I couldn't remember his name. But he's earlier.
I don't know who you're talking
I was talking about the white guard in the 90s.
The guy who shot free throws underhanded, Rick Barry.
No,
That's like the 60s or something.
Mullins.
Oh, Nick. Yes, Mullins, shooter. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
Chris Mullins.
yeah.
It's not him. Anyway,
I know. I got it.
it's good stuff. Gets drafted to the Warriors. Quickly becomes a breakout star. 2007, he's averaging 16.5 per game. Wins Most Improved Player. By 2010, he's averaging 25 per game. He was known as one of the fastest guards in the league. And the reason I wanted this, I loved watching this guy play.
Yeah.
He was so much fun to watch. It's like he played a different speed than everyone.
So fun. He was small, but he was so athletic. He was also, by the way, really fun to play with in 2K.
Yeah, you couldn't. It was too fast.
Yeah, he was awesome. And
I think of him as like a little John Wall-esque. Like he was like John Wall before John Wall, like just a speedster.
yeah. And
Anyway.
super one of these ultra athletic guards. He was awesome.
Yeah, and Warriors fans loved him. He was their guy. So before the trade, the Warriors core was Monta Ellis, Steph Curry, David Lee. But there were some problems. Ellis and Curry were both small guards who were ball dominant that couldn't defend. Plus, this team was not fully bought in on Steph with his, ankle issues.
Yeah.
The Warriors were coming off a 34-46 season in 2010-11 before making a trade March 2012. They'd missed the playoffs 4 straight seasons. Let's talk about this trade. They make the trade with the Bucks. The Bucks were coming off of also 35-47, 9th in the East, missed the playoffs. They were a middle-of-the-pack team. Their main guys were Andrew Bogut, Brandon Jennings. I used to love these two guys, Ersan Ilyasova and Carlos Delfino. Their biggest issue was offense. They needed a guard who can get them some buckets. They had built around Andrew Bogut, who was the number 1 pick.
Right.
But injuries devastated that plan.
Yeah. Bogut really never panned out.
That famous injury, this brutal injury where he fell on his elbow, on a dunk attempt.
Yeah.
That's a classic one. He also had ankle injuries.
Can we rewind a little bit to Bogut on
Sure.
going first overall? It's so hard to imagine him as a good prospect.
Well, 2005 was a different NBA.
He was dominant in the post.
Oh, yeah, it was a dominant big.
Really? And he was a great scorer in the post?
Yeah, great finisher.
Because the end of his career, he was not a good scorer at all.
Well, the league changed throughout his career.
Right, that's
But
true.
when he got drafted, it was like when like bigs were like the prize.
Yeah.
The different NBA, right? 3-point shot wasn't as important. As we'll discuss later on, what became his strength is he was an amazing passer,
Yeah.
and that's where the Warriors did well with him.
Right.
So the Bucks wanted Monta Ellis because they needed scoring, and their idea was this guy Brandon Jennings and Monta Ellis were going to be super athletic. We're going to be fun to watch. That was the idea.
It is funny because wasn't Brandon Jennings also a small guard who couldn't defend?
Yeah, but at the time, he was younger, and I guess they thought maybe he would become a guy who could.
He was really small though. Like the Warriors were trading the Bucks their problem.
Pretty much.
And why did they choose Curry over Ellis? At that point, it was known that Curry was
So this
the
is
guy.
so that's a great question. And
Not yet. Curry didn't become a guy for a couple of years. No.
right, so we're gonna get there that when the trade happens, the Warriors fan base loses their minds, and they're like, "You should have traded Steph." And
Hilarious.
there is rumors, and I was trying to look into this. There was rumors, and the way I remembered it, and I remember seeing stuff that the Warriors actually offered Steph, and the Bucks wanted Monte, but I couldn't confirm that, and I didn't see that. So it was something I remember, but was not true.
We'll ask the people on social media to dig that one up. Because
Dig
if
up.
that's true,
But
that would be one of the
right.
craziest things to ever happen.
So what actually happened is the Warriors behind the scenes believe Steph was the future. Even with his injuries, they thought his style was better for them. Okay, so let's talk about the trade. March 13th, 2012. At the time, it was a shocker. People were not prepared for this. And again, Monta Ellis was a fan's favorite. They loved him in Golden State. They make the trade. It's Andrew Bogut and Steven Jackson for Monta Ellis, Ekpe Udoh, and Kwame Brown.
Kwame Brown must have been traded 400 times.
He's
in
been
his
around.
NBA
And
career.
this trade, it was already like, it's 2012, so his career was already basically over. He was just like salary filler.
Right.
Warriors fans were furious. The next home game, the crowd was booing Joe Lacob like crazy. They were cheering Monte during the game.
Wow.
And Joe Lacob says it was like the most uncomfortable he's been, and it was like really tough for him at those games. And the reason the Warriors made this trade is they wanted around Steph. They wanted more size, defense, and Bogut at the time was a defensive anchor. So he was one of the best defensive bigs in the league when he could stay healthy. So that was their reasoning behind it. When you're the winning side, you can kind of tell your story. So I think like now there's kind of like retelling of like, oh, we believed in Steph and we knew Steph was going to work out. I think really at the time was that giving up Steph wouldn't have gotten them
Right.
Bogut.
Yeah, he didn't have. I mean, he was nothing at the time.
Right. I mean, he was a rookie of the year, and Steph was good. He was averaging 18 points per game the year before.
But in how many games?
But he was injured. Yeah, it's a good point. So,
And sorry, what year did this trade happen again?
this trade is 2012.
2012-13 season.
Yes. Or March of 2012.
Right. So, for context here, Curry played. It was 2011 was the season that he really missed a lot of games. He played only 26 games that year.
Right. He was coming off a serious ankle injury.
But the funny thing is that that's really the only season. Like when I think about Steph, I think like, oh, he was constantly struggling with ankle injuries at the beginning of his career. It's just that one season. He played 80 games his rookie season, 74 games his second season. Then he had that injury. And then he played 78, and 80, 79, 79.
But it was just
First
he kept like re-injuring it. I don't know what exactly. Like he just kept re-hurting it. It was the point where people said he had glass ankles.
Right. It's famous. It must have been that one season he just kept getting hurt.
Yeah.
And he has those specific braces that no one else wears on both ankles. So clearly it's been an issue. Also, I know sounds like he did a lot of physical therapy.
And his new trainer actually credits the fact like he was having ankle problems and they worked like crazy on his core.
Yeah.
And they said that his core, I don't know how that connects, that your core to your ankle, but they said they started working on moving through your core somehow.
It's all connected.
But
They say that
it worked.
he deadlifts the most on the team.
Right, I've seen that.
Always. Yeah. Okay, fine. So, anyways, the fan base wants them to trade Curry. They don't. They move Monta Ellis.
Yeah, and people are fuming. I remember just around the league the reaction, like you traded your best player.
Right.
Monta Ellis was their guy. He was averaging 24 a game the year before. And it's not like he was old. He was a young guy. But what's interesting is that behind the scenes, there was a little bit of problems. Monta Ellis, when they drafted Curry in 2009, before meeting him, just when they drafted him, said we can't coexist.
That's crazy.
And he was right. Just it was him the one who gets sent away.
Yeah, he was right, but it might have been a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know?
Yeah.
If he thought they weren't going to be able to coexist, they obviously weren't going to be able to coexist.
Right. And I think that's part of the reason why the Warriors want to move on from him is that it seems like he might have not possibly, I don't want to assume, but maybe was not the best teammate and wasn't willing to change his ways a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, Steph, we've seen throughout his career how he's been willing to change his style, because before they won a championship, Steph was on ball all game, the ball's in his hands, and then Kerr comes in and it's off ball.
Yeah.
So he's known as a good teammate and wanting to, being willing to change.
Right. And also, did Monta Ellis ever win in his career?
No. So he gets traded. After the trade, he plays. This is what's crazy. And this is where I was shocked that I did not know this. First of all, I originally had thought that Monta Ellis would trade to the Mavericks. I remember him playing on the Mavericks.
Yeah, I remember Mavericks and Pacers.
So he goes to the Bucks. He gets there halfway through 2011-12, averages 19 a game, makes the playoffs. Then he plays one more season there and leaves. So
Yeah.
they traded this guy who's like their future. They only got him for a year and a half. It was a rental.
Well, it's always a risk, right?
Yeah.
They should have turned around and traded him before the trade deadline. I'm sure they knew he wasn't going to resign. Or maybe they didn't.
Right. But and it's interesting and then he goes to Dallas and he actually was a good player with Dirk for a while. And in 2014, Monta Ellis and Dirk pushed the eventual champion. They in playoffs to 7 games. They lost to the Spurs in 7. So he was pretty good. He never ended up winning or anything, but he was part of a team that was very competitive.
Yeah, he just missed the Mavericks.
Just missed them, exactly.
I wonder if him going to the Mavericks, he was like, okay, I see I screwed up, with my attitude on the Warriors. Let me go play in a system where I'm fine not being the guy and whatever, and I'll have to.
I don't know, because he was out of the league pretty soon after that.
Right, he only had those 2 years on Dallas. And
then he went to the Pacers, then he kind of left the league in 2017.
He fizzled out, yeah.
He never made an all-star team despite scoring. So he's one of those guys that trying to think of a good example, like Cam Thomas maybe today, who it's a good thing he got cut today. Just a guy who could put up numbers, but it wasn't always in winning efforts.
It's a little crazy that he never made an all-star team.
It is pretty great. Well, when he was doing what he was doing on the Warriors, they weren't winning. So he was putting up numbers on a bad team.
Yeah, but he was scoring 24, 25 points a game. He is a season with 24, a season with 25.
In a very stacked West, right? The West is always a little more difficult to make playoffs. To make the All-Star.
Yeah.
Especially as a guard. Let's discuss the rest of the guys in the trade. So he ends up his career 17,900 career points, Monta Ellis. So he was a good player.
Yeah.
Ekpe Udo. He was a former 6 overall pick, a defensive big. Gets traded, spends a couple of seasons with the Bucks, goes to the Clippers, ended up becoming a dominant defensive center in the Euro League.
Nice.
And Kwame Brown was just salary filler. Barely played for Milwaukee and then left the league. The Warriors, they get Andrew Bogut, who they needed rim protection, desperately rebounding, passing, all that. And he becomes crucial to the beginning of their dynasty. During their early championship run, he was their defensive anchor.
Right.
He was the starting center on that championship team. Obviously, they had their death lineup where he came out.
Yeah.
But he was the guy. And people forget this. The year they lost the finals, right? LeBron's 3-1 comeback. he got hurt.
Yeah.
People do not remember this. There's the whole story of Draymond getting suspended. Also, Bogut got hurt during that series.
Right.
So he was a very important player, and he was perfect for the Warriors system.
Yeah. Talk about someone who just completely accepted his role. Like
100%. He was the defensive anchor, rebounder, and then offense, he was a passer.
did you see the DeAndre Ayton quote, the recent one?
This guy, sometimes I think I'm getting got. Like, this can't be a real quote. The one he's like, I looked at myself in the mirror and said, I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
I look at that, I'm like, that must be, NBA Central. Like, that can't be real. But then these are real quotes.
Why? I thought it's on theme with this. No, just you first overall pick. You think you're all that, and at some point in your career, you just realize,
I mean, he had one earlier in the year where he's like, I'm not Clint Capella. And it's like, first of all, you'd be happy to be Clint Capella. But like, he, Aiton, someone needs to PR trade this guy.
yeah,
I like it though. He says what he's thinking. And look at the Lakers right now, by the way. Since he's accepted his role, LeBron's accepted the role. They're the hottest team in the league right now.
yeah,
And Luka's slipping in MVP conversation.
yeah. I mean, I assume Shea will
I
still.
think Shea locked it up, but Luka, if he averages 45 for the next month, like he's been doing.
Yeah, except if another.
They're a 3 seed, by the way. They're playing some of the best ball in the NBA right now. People are, and I'm as big a LeBron hater as many, but you got to give him credit at 41 to like change his style and be off ball and be willing to be the third guy, and then have a game where he went like, what did he go? He went like 14 to 15 for 30 points.
Yeah,
They're playing good ball right now, and they look like they're having fun out there, which is rare on a LeBron team. And Luka looks like he's having fun, so it's good things going on there.
yeah. We'll see. I mean, whatever. Obviously, it'd be cool if they won, but it's gonna be. There's a lot to go through. While we're on this topic, MVPs. What do you think of the Cade Cunningham? Now he's not going to be able to get an award because he's only going to play 60 games, the minimum 65. Then
Yeah,
NBA PA released a statement today saying
they
like
should make an exception.
not making an exception. They're just like we need to get rid of that rule.
So
Whatever.
it is something I hate it for Cade because he's having an amazing year and it's just unlucky, right? A lung issue,
Collapsed lung.
but there is a reason this rule was made. It was to like avoid load managing. They might have went too far. Like they did it to force guys to play. So I do think though, like they'll find a balance. Let's say they move it to 60 games. So if someone's gonna play 59, and then it will be a story.
My take is just that you scrap it completely. This award is voted on. So whoever's voting on it has all the necessary information. If you're load management and you don't play 20 games a year because of it, okay, fine. So to me, that's just like, great. That's up to the voter. So you're not an MVP because you decided to sit 20 games. So now you're not so valuable. Like why? Like just leave that in the hands of the voters.
Let's say so if you never get hurt throughout a season and you sit 20 games, then you're good. Like or whatever 18. Like this rule made it that guys will never sit to load manage because they need to save those games for when they're actually hurt.
My point is, as a voter,
you should take that into account?
Wouldn't you take that into account?
It wasn't about the voters. It's not about winning the awards. It's the fact that these awards affect your money.
Yeah, exactly.
So players will play when they're not injured because they don't want to they need the first team, second team, third team to get those big contracts.
I know, but my point is the voters will still not give them, if you're sitting out 60 games, if Cade just decided to sit out 20 games, so the voters might be like, no, he's not a third teamer. The guy sat out 20 games for no reason this season. I'm giving it to someone else.
Right. I guess the problem was like a guy like Embiid or someone like who plays 55 games and dominates when he plays and his numbers are good enough.
But why would again, shouldn't that go to the voters to decide that he's not, you know?
I guess. I agree with you. I think I'll tell you this though, the spirit of the rule I like. Players should play.
I honestly agree with that.
And the NBA had gotten so far where every back-to-back guys were sitting and guys were sitting 4 games and 8 nights sitting. Like all these things guys were sitting to the point where the NBA had to make a rule to get guys to play. So
yeah, but they were doing that anyway. They're still doing that. Like I understand the NBA is trying to throw whatever at the wall, try to get anything to get these guys to stop with the load management and to actually play. But like we talked about a little while ago, maybe it would just be a good idea to make the season 60 games, but whatever, cover that on a different episode. to me, it's just like, okay, fine. So, leave everything in the hands of the voters. None of these rules are actually working. There's still too much load management happening. You're still, okay, fine. So then you put a guy in for a minute or whatever, you take Markkinen out for the fourth quarter or whatever. They're going
Right.
to find ways around all these rules.
Someone did say that, like, Cage should just show up and play for the first minute and then come out.
Right. Then he can still get
It's
it.
like Bridges, right? Bridges had that record of playing every game for 5 years in a row, and they already clinched the playoffs, so he came in for the first play, fouled someone, and went out just so he could keep his playing 82 game streak. So I agree with you. I think the rule's a little silly. I think the eventual answer is they're going to shorten the season, which they won't do, but they should do, but maybe they shouldn't. I have no real answers. I don't think there is a right answer.
Yeah.
They're like, Cage should be first team. He's had a fantastic year. They're going to be a 1 seed. So he shouldn't be punished for that. But by the way, why are people's contracts and hundreds of $1 million being decided by reporters voting on an award? That's stupid too,
Well, I
isn't it?
I don't disagree. I mean, I don't understand why it has to be structured this way, where like, oh, if you were first team, then you can get a bigger contract. Like, why does that structure exist at all? I don't know.
Right. It's a good point.
Like, regardless of who's voting on it, why can't I just pay people whatever they're worth on the open market? Why are there caps on how much I can
Well,
pay
because
someone?
part of I think it was done to help teams retain guys. So if you become all NBA on this team, they're allowed to spend a certain amount. If you leave, you can't get that amount. You could get a lot, but not that much.
Oh, right. That was part of it. But
So like a team like Utah can keep a star.
right, fine, that was part of it. And I think also part of it was like LeBron 10 years ago, they say like his value to a franchise was $70 million, but because of the rules, you could only pay him $40 million or whatever.
I mean, look at Steph. Steph same way. Like if it was no salary cap, the guy would have gotten 100 mil.
Yeah, although that's still on, your agent still has to negotiate that. I don't know. I'm always pro an open marketplace. I
Really?
understand that the NFL. I mean,
I wouldn't want the NBA to be like an MLB where like the Lakers could just buy everyone.
no, not in that sense. I like a salary cap. I don't like, oh, this player can only make this amount of money. I like
Right.
the way the NFL does it. There's a salary cap. If you want to pay Mahomes $100 million a year, you can. You're
You
just
just
going
got
to
to figure out the rest of your roster.
right. You're going to be screwed if you do. So that's my personal preference on this. But the reason why the NBA doesn't do that is because no one wants to play in small markets. The NFL doesn't have that problem.
Right.
It's not bad. You can play in Wisconsin and make $60 million a year and no one cares. It's not a bad thing for Aaron Rodgers to be the Packers quarterback for however many years he was the Packers quarterback. But in the NBA, it's like, okay, you want to give these small market teams, well, not small market, you're giving everyone an edge. You draft a good player. If you're the Utah Jazz, you drafted a good player, fine. You can re-sign him. You can pay him more. Now a player, it's worth it for him. Okay, fine. I'll stay in Utah. I'll make an extra $10 million instead of going to LA or whatever, blah, blah, blah.
The truth is, I have a lot of problems with the way the salary cap and all that structured right now. Do you know that like right now, like you could be penalized for drafting great players. Like if you draft 3 guys who are superstars, you can't afford all of them.
Yeah, but
The
that's how it works.
Thunder are gonna have to make decisions on who they can keep, even though they drafted all those guys. How is that fair?
That's how it works in every sport.
I believe there should be a rule that if someone stays on the team that drafted them, then like every year longer, a certain percentage of the amount they're getting paid doesn't count towards your salary cap. So if you stayed on a team for 10 years, so then you should only like, let's say we pay you 100 million, only 90 million should count against the team's salary cap.
I hear it.
Something like that where like you should be rewarded for drafting good players and keeping them.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be like, oh well, we got Shea and then we drafted Jalen Williams, Chet, and all these great players, but we can't pay them because they're too good.
But that's just that's how it works in every sports league. I mean, not the MLB, but in the NFL, it's the same thing. If you go off and you draft, the best quarterback and the best offensive lineman and the best defensive lineman, you're gonna have
Yeah,
to
but
pay all
that
those
NBA
guys
salary, the
contracts.
NFL salary cap's not real though, because they can always like, oh, we pushed it to a signing bonus. They have ways around it.
To a certain degree, but we've seen teams
I
struggle.
remember
with it.
Taysom Hill got like $100 million deal, but then they're like, actually, if you really do the math, and it's really like 6 million. Like the NFL has like weird like workarounds that the NBA does not have, unless to the Clippers and you pay Kawhi or under the table. But in general, like there are issues, and there is no winning right now in general. Like no one's like so happy with the new NBA situation because like now you're hard capped and you have to let the like it used to be guys were okay going into luxury tax, but now there's a second cap and
Yeah, no one wants to go over the second apron, whatever, for another time. All right.
definitely for another time. Let's go back to the trade
Yeah, I was
real
gonna
quick.
say
We like to talk a lot of topics here. So back to the trade. This trade, and this is very important. I mean, it opened up right the team to be built around Steph. That was like, and it's one they say it's one of the most influential trades of the Warriors. It is the most influential trade of the Warriors like ever because it opened the way for Steph to become the face of the franchise. But what's crazy is Monte was like proven already. Steph, there was doubts. So Steph comes back and then they sign into an extension. But because there's injury doubts, it's a 4-year, $44 million deal. By year 3, he's an MVP. So they the
Okay.
cheapest guy, which paved way for them getting KD at a point. Like this trade, Monta Ellis was the beginning of the dynasty. Could they get Clay, they get Draymond, like, but this was the trade. Like if they traded Steph, who knows what happens? Who knows if Steph becomes Steph?
Right.
So that's why this trade was so interesting to me. Not because like some like Monta Ellis, whatever. It's not like it's not this crazy guy that they traded, but it was the fact that at the time he was considered better than Steph, and they ended up keeping him, and it turned into 4 championships.
Yeah. How do you think those Warriors fans feel? You like obviously they're very happy with what happened, but you think it gives them, all right, I respect what my GM's doing. Maybe he knows a little bit more than I do, or they
It's
still
interesting. I wonder, like, I think the Warriors kind of like tripped into this. I don't know if they really believed in Steph. I think they did, but not really.
yeah.
So like right like I said earlier, when you win, you get to tell the story. So they're like, oh, we believed in Steph, and we were like, well, then why do you only pay him 44 mil? So you didn't really believe in him.
Well, you want it. I mean, to me, that's not a good proof because obviously
But
you
you
kind
want
of
to
gotta.
pay as cheap as you can, I
Yeah.
guess. But the point is that I think they kind of it's a mix of both. I think they believed in Steph at a point. I think they also just Monte wasn't the right locker room guy for them.
Yeah. Well, let's also, you know, let's be completely clear here. No one knew what Steph was going to become.
He didn't even know what he was going to
Yeah,
become.
that was like him turning into, his entire player type ends up
Right, changing the whole league.
right. Like the whole league realizes, oh, this is the way to do it. Like
Yeah.
this is literally the best type of player we could have. And like being the greatest shooter of all time and being able to get off these crazy shots. Like no one knew that that was going to be who Steph was. So we can't really fault the Warriors for not 100% realizing it,
Right.
but
And
they did enough. They made the right choice in the end of the
right.
day and it
And
worked out for them.
right. And that's why it's so fascinating to me is because like we were talking about, the fans hated the trade. Everyone hated the trade, and they were like, they wanted to like to sell the team. Like they hated this, and it turned out to be the best move they ever made. And sometimes life is like that, where like you got to do something a little unpopular right now, but in the long run, it's gonna like this is the way it's supposed to be. And obviously, they hit on a lot of other stuff, right? They hit on Clay, they hit on Draymond. Then they move on from Mark Jackson, and everyone was angry about that.
Yeah, I was
And
saying
then
that.
Steve Kerr wins the first year. So they made a lot of unpopular moves, but in the end, it worked out. And that's why this trade is so fascinating to me because it's rare you see like a trade opening the doors for a dynasty. And it's none of the players that really came in. I mean, Bogut, yes, but it was really the fact that they just got out of the way. It's a
Yeah.
little bit like CJ McCollum was like this awesome 6 man as like a young guy, but they had good guys ahead of him, so he didn't really get that many minutes. And it was like Dame and Aldridge and Gerald Wallace. They had like other guys, older guys. And then one off season, they moved like 3 guys off the team.
Right.
And then CJ McCollum all of a sudden most improved player. And it's like, not really. He just finally got the reps and the opportunity because the other guys left.
Yeah.
And like that's what this is. It's like the team was it was Monte's team, and Steph was this good player who was with them. And then it became Steph's team. And as a cool little thing about it, this like right because I said Monte might have not been the best teammate. No, like at the same time, Steph says that Monte called him when he got traded and told him like it's your team now, and like you got this,
That's nice.
and like you'll be okay handling like the crowd and the people like, you got this.
Right, you
So
get through it.
so that's cool.
That's awesome.
I like that. And it's just just a cool trade that I want to think about. It's like not really when you look at it like it's not like, oh my gosh, they got like blown out, like they got ripped off. It's not one of those trades. It's just this is a cool trade like that NBA history changed completely because of this move.
Yeah. I mean, this basically is one of a series of however many events of the Warriors just perfectly nailing 10 years. And, they hit on Steph, then Steph has that injury, which allows them to draft Clay, second round pick. They hit on Draymond,
They
like you're saying.
they sign Iguodala, like they just
Right, they sign Iguodala, they sign Durant, they get rid of Durant, I guess, is a pretty obvious one, but like you're saying, Mark Jackson leads them to the conference finals or the second round of a team that, like, wasn't successful before that, and then they fire him and everyone's up in arms, and they hire Steve Kerr, who's an ex-announcer,
yeah.
like, I think he went straight from announcing
Ex-GM too. He was a
Right.
Suns GM for a little bit, failed GM.
to, head coach of the Warriors and builds one of the most beautiful offenses we've seen in
Ever.
ever, and he also, like, he built it, and then he improved on it, and then, like, he improved every year with the new personnel.
And his biggest thing was that he went from Steph being on ball to off ball.
Yeah, like
And even that was like Steph was like, "Really? Like you're taking me off?" Like, and he did it, but it was like this is not how things were done. That was the NBA wasn't like that. The NBA was on ball.
yeah,
So it's just it's really one of those things that like and that in general, like we need to do a deep dive on just the Warriors GM and their front office because they went like 100% for like 5 years. Like they just hit after hit of making the right moves.
yeah. Who was their GM?
Meyer,
Yeah,
he just left. He left the Warriors recently.
I know, that's what I was thinking. Bob Myers, he went from being a GM to now he's, like, on ESPN, talking head.
Well, some say he left at the exact right time. He built this team up, and then they were trying to do this whole like 2 timeline nonsense. Like we have young guys and we have old guys, and it's gonna work out. And he was like, "This is bad," and left.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting to me, which is a theme that we've been seeing, how smart these GMs actually are versus how much luck is involved. Because the Warriors, you look at them, you're like, oh my God, Bob Myers, the Warriors front office must be the most brilliant front office ever. Like, they made every single right move for 10 years. They nailed everything, like the trades, the
Yep.
free agents, everyone they signed, their roster construction is all perfect. And then they go ahead and they get like Jordan Poole. And
Even
it's
though
like,
they won a championship with him, I would say then they go ahead and take James Wiseman over LaMelo Ball,
right. That was a whole nother.
and they tell Anthony Edwards we would take him over you.
Oh, they told Edwards that they'd take Wiseman over him.
And it was the #1 pick, but in one of their meetings, they're like, "We wouldn't take you," which is crazy
Yeah.
because apparently they didn't think he worked hard enough. They were wrong about that.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't work hard enough, but it doesn't matter. He's he's still so
No,
good.
he works. That guy's a monster.
Yeah. I mean, he also is extremely gifted.
Yeah, but so it's funny just about the GM thing and what you're talking about. Andre Iguodala went on a podcast and called out the Warriors ownership and GM after he was gone and said, "These guys are getting a little too big. Like they're getting a little too big headed.
Right.
Like they made all these good moves and now they think they're like it's all them." I think he's like the players did this and like they got really cocky, the Warriors ownership, and decided we're gonna win now and win later. That's the 2 timelines thing.
Right.
And that's why with the Wiseman and they refused to make a trade to help Steph then because they were like, we want to be good now and later. And that's why Kuminga, they kept him for too long and it blew up clearly. But so he was like, these guys like lightning struck and they were acting like we did it, you know? And really just they lucked into some great moves. They did make great moves, but they're not above making mistakes.
Right. But again, we saw the same thing in the reverse order with Presti 2 weeks ago, right? Like Presti, he said, "Oh, I'm going to like, I'm going to trade James Harden. He looks like a complete idiot." But if he didn't do that, we'd be like, "Oh, this is the greatest GM of all time." Like he traded for Shea, and then Shea turned into an MVP, and they won a championship. But now they have 7 draft picks over the next 7 first round draft
Right.
picks over the next 4 years and they're going to be set up forever and they're never going to have to worry about the salary cap. They'll just be able to keep trading, blah, 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 whatever, so on and so forth. So it's very interesting. I mean, clearly there is like,
To be a great GM, I think like you need to be like a happy medium where like you don't overtinker. Like, right? Like that was Presti being a little too much trading Harden. Like sometimes you need to like trust the process and sometimes you need to make moves. Like that's the thing. It's so hard to be a GM because like how long do you trust process? That's why also GMs have such a hard time trading guys they drafted because there's their own bias that they have. Like they drafted this guy and they're like, oh, he's gonna figure it out. Like it's gonna work out, you know?
yeah, Ozzie Newsome was the Ravens GM from their inception until I want to say his last draft was the Lamar Jackson draft. He had 2 first-round picks in the first draft he ever did, and he drafted Ray Lewis and Jonathan Ogden. And then he had 2 first-round picks in the last draft he ever did. He drafted Hayden Hurst, bust, and
In
Lamar Jackson. So whatever. But his philosophy was, which is what I think is probably the appropriate philosophy, he didn't have an ego. He said, we do everything we can. We value our players. At the end of the day, we're looking for a 50% hit rate.
Right.
We're trying to get 4 starters out of every draft. That's our goal. And sometimes we're going to think that we completely hit on a guy and he's just not going to pan out.
And that's, by the way, like why he was a good GM is there's no ego there. Like being willing to be like, you know what, this guy was a miss.
Right. Not only this guy was a miss, it's like he probably told them, honestly. I've heard players say like, oh yeah, like the GM told me this is going to go as far as you take it, basically. Like you have all this, whatever. It's up to you. It's in your hands now. Like I'm giving you the opportunity. Like he understood. He knew no matter what he did, all he could do was hit half the time.
Yeah. It's really just like basketball. Best shooters in the world and still only hit half their shots.
I'm always thinking that. It's like these guys, you know, imagine you get 50% on a test.
Right.
You know, your parents think you're a failure now.
People always say that about baseball, like the best hitters in the world don't hit it 7 out of 10 times.
Right. Insane.
All right, I think we should do a score.
Oh yeah.
This is an interesting one because, like, again, I don't feel like this is some major ripoff. I just thought it was a cool trade, like that really, like, it was a domino effect kind of trade.
Yeah. I'm thinking like I don't even know where to begin on a grade front. I guess for the Bucks.
I'll tell you why.
You know it's a bad trade for the Bucks though, actually.
Because Monta Ellis left. That's
Right.
2.5. That's why that's a bad trade. Okay, let's go to score.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I mean, like I said, whatever. We grade on the bad scale. So because of that, just because they basically traded
Bogut for nothing.
I'm gonna give it. But it wasn't any. You know, it didn't kill them forever. It wasn't anything horrible. I'm gonna stick it at a 5.3.
I think you're right around the right path. I'm gonna go a little higher just because, you know, addition by subtraction. Like the Warriors getting rid of Monte and picking the right guy to get rid of just was a good move.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go like maybe a 6.5.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, like I said, on the bad scale, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, it wasn't the worst. It was just me on the good scale for the Warriors. Like they picked the right guy, and Bogut ended up being a champion with them, and part of like the beginning of that dynasty.
Yeah, but that's also Bogut wasn't anything crazy. Okay, he was on the Warriors for what, 4 seasons, 5 seasons.
But he was so
He was a
important.
great defensive player, but he was nothing on offense. Like he wasn't breaking 8 points a game. Even.
Right, but their offense was built around being a passer.
Yeah, yeah, and
He was like doing like what Draymond like gets a lot of credit for now. He was the beginning of that.
yeah, but he wasn't. You know, Draymond's. You know, he's getting 6 to 10 assists a game. He's getting
Sure,
3 assists.
no, he wasn't like that, but he was just a very meaningful. For the beginning of their what they built, he was very meaningful. Good locker room guy, and he was defensively. The stats don't show, but he was a great defender.
Yeah, he was very important for them. Like you said, he wasn't in the death lineup, but he was still a good player. He was a starter.
Even with he was the starting center on a championship team.
Yeah, bottom line.
Yeah.
So he was good, but nothing crazy. And
This trade was more about just the domino effect of one little move can make. Like like that move kept LeBron from winning 3 more rings. Like the whole NBA changed because of that move, and the 3-point revolution came on because of that move. Like
right.
it's just one of those like that's the little domino that became completely changed the way the game is played.
Yeah, it is really fascinating. It's just like a player who was, he was very fun to watch.
A player who young kids would never even know who he is now.
Yeah.
But he had that just that trade impacted the ripple effect of that trade changed the NBA forever.
Yeah. And in my first 2K game,
And I loved watching him play.
yeah. And
If you get bored, just pull up some Monta Ellis highlights. That dude was so fast.
yeah,
And
fiery.
you couldn't stay in front of him. He was so fast.
In NBA 2K12, it was the first
You were dominating with him.
first 2K game I ever had. No, I was it was in my career. My player was another guard, and me and Monte, we were the two guys who would start, and it was fun. It was
Yeah, it was
playing with him.
nice.
I feel like I know him personally because
I
of
love
that.
that.
And we won championships. Me and Monte together. He needed me to
Bring out
over
the
hump.
best to him. Yeah.
Yeah, I brought him over the hump. You're welcome. And you could tell his ways had changed in 2K because he was willing to play with another guard. So that's yeah. All right. You got anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for listening to The Trade Rewind. You can find us on social media at The Trade Rewind on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. If you enjoy listening to the show, the best thing you can do for us is to leave us a 5-star on Spotify and share the episode.